Today I'm at Packwood House in Warwickshire, one of my favourite National Trust gardens, which has been really sensitively developed over the last 20 years by head gardener Mick Evans. If you're creating or improving a garden, it's good to think about the local conditions, the soil, the existing features, the building and the spirit of the place. And that's something that Mick understands. So Mick, when you came here 20 years ago, I think, what was the garden like?
Well, structurally it was pretty much the same as what you see it today insofar as the buildings, etc. But the lawn itself was just a lawn, plain lawn behind me. There was no structural plants that you can see before you today.
And the colours are really beautiful. You've got a real way with colour. What inspired you?
Looking at the brick-built gazebos and that lovely warm terracotta, working with hot colours was probably the best way to go.
It's really working for me, like the yellows against the brick is lovely.
Yeah. We needed to obscure a lot of this colour because we didn't want to detract too much from the magnificence of the yew garden. The yew garden is something which the eye is led towards. So we wanted you to come up the steps from down below and then all of a sudden be hit by this wall of colour.
Yeah.
Like a firework going off in the head.
And then are there elements of the sort of surrounding landscape that or the building that you've factored in as well?
Yes, we've borrowed the landscape from outside. So for instance, the copper beech over there, we link it in by having the phormium at this time of the year, which is a very similar colour. During the earlier part of the year, we use the Aeonium Schwarzkopf because the copper beech, when it first comes out, is almost like a blacky purple, very, very dark, almost black, and so is this Aeonium. So there's that unity, so there's linking all over the place.
So for people with much smaller gardens, what would you recommend that they consider when they're designing borders?
When you inherit a garden, it's about a year before you should start messing around with it, because you may lose a few good gems in there that you overlook by just digging everything up.
Yeah.
For me, you sort of build the view up to a climax by using those colours, and that you create that harmony, and that's what Packwood is all about.
So we could come down from the top terrace into these wonderful double borders, which I know you created a few years after you first arrived here. So what's the thinking behind them?
When I first came here, this area was kind of like a plain lawn. I was, quite curious as to, what had possibly been here before. So I did my research and found that before the war, there had actually been these double herbaceous borders. As the war came along, this area was just dug up and used for growing vegetables, etc., and then reseeded after the war. It has just been a reinstated feature from the early 20th century, really.
So the colours here are really different from the colours on the top terrace, and I know that you were inspired by the house. So can you talk me through how you created these borders and how you achieved this wonderful colour scheme?
So everything became again determined on what the background was. So in this case, you've got this amazing rendered house with these silvered window frames of oak and the downpipes with their little embellishments, their little motifs. So we decided to be using sort of pastel shades that would work well with this. Also, we had to figure out what kind of pathway material we wanted. It marries in beautifully with the rendering. Silvers, greys, blues, purples work really well, we thought.
What type of soil do you have here at Packwood?
It's a fairly free draining soil, fairly light loam as you can see, and it's got plenty of organic matter in it.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, so as you say, a bit of stone as well. But if you squeeze it, it does hold itself together, and if you just touch it, it'll crumble away quite nicely.
So it's a perfect loam with a bit of sand, silt and clay in it.
So we can grow a lot of things like bulbs, alliums, which some people will struggle with if it's a very clay sort of wet soil. This dries out really quickly, this soil. And if you look at the geraniums, now geraniums love it dry. We're forever dividing them every 2 to 3 years.
So for most people, they won't have such a grand house, but there'll still be features, won't there, that can inspire their planting?
If you want to create the right view, don't mess around too much with a mishmash of colours. Work out, say for instance, if you've got brick, and then stick with that kind of either warm colour or go for a pastel shade. If you use the right colours, you can alter anything and lift it.
National Trust gardens can be a great source of inspiration, and our gardeners and volunteers are always happy to talk. So why not pop along to a garden near you or buy the National Trust School of Gardening from our shop.